With the first pick,
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast presented by Stadium Rant. Oh my God, look at that hat. Loud and proud. If you're on YouTube, you see it already. Lee's out here repping his boys, Commanders. And you guys are playing the Browns this upcoming week. Gonna be interesting. And I have zero faith in my team to even talk any smack right now. So we're gonna move on from that. But we are here to talk about some starts and sits. We're gonna redo a redraft draft. So have the knowledge that we have now, going back 4 weeks to the beginning of the NFL season. We're gonna draft all of the players over again, get through as many as we can, but we wanted to touch on some starts and sits for some guys that are kind of on the fence. You know, these guys aren't obvious starts. We're not going to give you any guys like Josh Allen here. But to start it off, I liked Lee's call here. Why don't you talk about your quarterback start of the week?
Yeah. So for me, he's playing really well. The offense suits him. Geno Smith has got a pretty good, maybe not as good a matchup as we thought, after week one, but that Giants secondary is still very susceptible. The D line has played pretty well the last couple of weeks. We'll see what Kenneth Walker, coming off of an incredible game. They hung with the one thing that scares me a little bit is, the best game of the season for him was against a very explosive Lions offense. This could be a game script situation where they don't have to score a ton of points and they go ball control in the second half. However, with Malik Neighbors, we don't know if he's out. It becomes a much more scary proposition to play Geno. Obviously, I think that the Seahawks have one of the better secondaries. So even if he's in, I expect him to slow down quite a bit. But very susceptible secondary. I think that's where you beat the Giants. So I'm looking for another big week out of Geno Smith. And little tease, I would play him over the guy I have sitting at quarterback. And that was kind of my thought process making these.
It's a bold call, but I like it. I do agree with it. But we will leave that for later. All right, Mason.
Honestly, I want to jump in on that, Geno. Just real quick, I get it because, they are playing against Giants. That Giants secondary looks terrible. But they might just get a lead so early in this game where the game script doesn't necessarily work in Geno's favor, where it works a lot more in Kenneth Walker's favor. That's what scares me a lot with Geno. I think that, he could start off the game, first, let's say 2 out of first 4 drives, 2 touchdown passing drives. Let's say that. After that, are you really expecting much production from him if they're up 14-0, 17-3, something like that? Are you expecting much production from him? So that worries me a little bit. That's just kind of my hiccup.
Limited upside, you're saying?
Yeah. The potential is there because the defense is weak, but because the game plan and how bad of a team the Giants seem to be, that Geno's opportunities might not be there.
And that's fair. That's fair. I get both sides of it because, the Giants' D-line, like Lee was saying, is elite. They're probably going to try to choose to move the ball through the air. But like you're saying, the Giants' offense is so weak, it's not going to be a barn burner. All right. Mason, you want to jump into your quarterback start of the week?
Yeah, my quarterback start of the week is going to be Caleb Williams. Kind of the same situation. Obviously different. Geno Smith is a vet. Caleb Williams is an unproven rookie. Really hasn't had that fantasy production we wanted yet. This week they're going up against Carolina. Carolina, obviously, not that good of a team. On the defense ball, Joe Burrow is better than Caleb Williams as of now. But they, put up a lot of points against that Carolina defense. I think this is going to be a week where Caleb Williams gets maybe 2 touchdowns, whether one's through the air, one's to the ground, or both are through the air. I think this is the week for him to finally put up a number that we like. as a fantasy owner, and something that gives us a lot of hope to the future. If you have them in redraft, this is, I think, the week that you have been holding him to start. But don't go in full confidence. If he does throw up a game, like I think he's got. This is the first game where I've liked his floor.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So like last week he played against the Rams. They kind of controlled the game for the most part, so they didn't have to throw a bunch. But like very weak defense overall, just 10 points. Indy's been like the defense to target, it feels like, for across all positions, really. But yeah, he had a solid game there, 18.32 fantasy points and 4 point per touchdowns leagues. I think it's risky. I like that you're going bold here, but I would not start Caleb Williams personally.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it is a little risky, but when we're doing the starts, it's like I'm not going to say, "Oh, start Josh Allen." I want to say someone who's a little more on the fringe.
Yeah.
Oh, start the number one quarterback in all of fantasy, Jaden Daniels. I mean, obviously you're starting him.
I'm
QB1 this week. But I would just kind of I could see it, but the Bears defense is just so good. I think that's a low scoring game, and most of the Bears games are going to be this year. Just to kind of compare the two, that Giants Seahawks game is 43.5 is the total right now for Vegas. The Bears Panthers is 41.5. If I were going to bet the under on one of these two games, I would put all my chips on the Bears Panthers game. Andy Dalton, obviously, they look better. They scored some points against a really bad Bengals defense. A lot of that was running the ball. They're not going to be able to run the ball like that against this Bears defense. So I definitely see improvement from Caleb, and he could be. This isn't the week, but a few more bad weeks, and he could become a buy low candidate. You could see some people get a little nervous, especially depending on the schedule. I don't know their schedule offhand, but knowing that there's a Vikings are coming up. The Packers defense isn't bad. They're coming up. So I could see him mid-season or before the trade deadline be a pretty good buy low.
All right, that's going to bring us to my start of the week at quarterback. I have Trevor Lawrence going up against Indianapolis. I was just talking about it. Indy is that defense to target. There really isn't a quarterback that hasn't had success against them this season. So right now, Trevor Lawrence, he's got Christian Kirk starting to really come into his own. He's been targeted a ton in the past 2 games. Evan Ingram could be back from the hamstring injury. And then on top of it, Brian Thomas Jr. He is looking great the last few weeks. He's been, I think it was 18 targets over the last 2. Always a threat to take it deep. And with the Colts secondary so susceptible, but still having an offense that can put up points, I could see this being one of the higher point totals for the week. So I like me some Trevor Lawrence in this one. Tough to say that with him being QB 21 on the season so far, and really just a disappointing overall story for a first overall pick so far. But I still think that he has enough to get it done, can do enough on the ground to add a little bit of a baseline.
I mean, just jumping real quick, it's a must win for the Jags. I mean,
Right.
they're 0-4. It already seems like they're kind of out of playoffs, but this is an absolute must win. I can't expect Lawrence to come up and, like you said, quarterbacks have been having success against Indy. I can't see a must win quarterback with a guy like Lawrence, who at least has enough talent to produce good scoring games, not throw up a good fantasy production in a must win game.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were the only winless team in the league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Titans
after
won this
Tennessee
one.
won. Yep. I would tend to agree. It's scary just because of how bad they look, but the weapons are there. We'll see. I honestly like this better if Flacco is behind center for the Colts versus Anthony Richardson, possibly hobbled. I will say that one of my redraft leagues, I noticed that my opponent only had one quarterback. It was Jalen Hurts, and he did not make a waiver pickup for when waivers ran Tuesday night. So I had a guy I could drop. went and picked up a third quarterback just to play a little defense. And the available quarterbacks were Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, and Trevor Lawrence. And Lawrence is the one I picked up to keep away from my opponent.
Yeah. Highest ceiling of the three for sure, especially with the matchups the other two have. All right. So let's get into the running back. You know what? Let's switch it up. Instead of just going straight down the list here, let's go wide receiver sits. Switching it up hard, no rhyme or reason. Let's dive into it though. Lee, do you want to kick it off again?
Yeah, this pains me to say because I do have quite a bit of them this year. The kid, that was my son's first ever fantasy football draft pick, but I don't. Obviously, it's situational, but I don't. If I have any decent option, I'm sitting Tyreek Hill until further notice. Huntley's never thrown for 200 yards in a game, is what I saw. A lot of what he does is through the legs. I feel like you're really relying on Tyreek Hill to take one of those little end arounds and go to the house if he's going to deliver. And it's really bad. I don't know. I heard another show talking about it, and it is kind of mind blowing that the Dolphins would go into this season with Skylar Thompson as your only backup when you've got he had 4 or 5 concussions already, and you're a team that has really high paid star players. You've invested so much in that wide receiver core. It's unspeakable. And I mean, there were backups available. Jameis, Joe Flacco. There were guys out there. Heck, even Marcus Mariota. Anybody. You just having no options at backup quarterback. Very well may get Mike McDaniel fired and make him offensive coordinator somewhere next year.
Yeah. Could you imagine if they had made that same trade for Justin Fields and had all that speed around them? I know he's not like he's the polar opposite of Tua, at least going into the season, inaccurate, but very mobile. But that'd be so scary to have all that speed everywhere on top of Justin Fields being able to take off.
I mean, are you not calling the Steelers and seeing what they would? I mean, a 4th-round pick for Russell Wilson, who they would only have for a year. I mean, there's a lot of guys who think they'd be making calls.
Yeah, they didn't spend anything on us. So
I would take Tannehill at the. Why wouldn't they? Do Tannehill? Like, I feel like that would be a solid move for them for a couple weeks of that guy who you could throw him in a lineup and he'll do okay. But honestly, I'm gonna totally agree with the Tyreek kind of sit. I mean, obviously, if you're struggling at to put someone in at the flex or the wide receiver position, don't sit Tyreek. But in my biggest buy-in league, I'm actually sitting him this week for Deontay Johnson. If Deontay plays, if Deontay sits, I'm gonna be throwing Tyreek in. But it's crazy that at week 5. I have more faith in Deontay Johnson than I do Tyreek Hill.
With Andy Dalton slinging it too.
And that hurts my soul to say.
It's wild. All right. So, I mean, we got to dive right into Mason's wide receiver sit of the week.
Jalen Waddle. I mean, if like we just said, if you're not starting Tyreek Hill, why the hell are you starting Jalen Waddle? That's all I pretty much need to say.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. For mine, I have both Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker. I know Mason hates hearing this, but they're going up against Denver this week. It's just a tough matchup, man. The Broncos have been shutting down very good talent. They've only allowed 16.7 fantasy points per week. That's 3rd best in the league. They went up against Seattle, so obviously great trio there. Held them to the 12th most that week. Pittsburgh and Tampa, both bottom 4 when they went up against them. And then the Jets last week, they were 14th. No one's putting up big numbers against this squad. I don't think that Gardner Minshew is going to be the guy that picks them apart without his best wide receiver against a really tough defense. Love Gardner Minshew in a positive matchup, but I don't think this is the week for any of the 3. I do think that it's tough to do that after seeing Trey Tucker pop off for 12 receptions, 140 yards, or whatever it was last two weeks. And then Jacoby also was like 24 targets or something like that in the last 2 weeks. Let me see here.
I know he got 10 targets this last week. I'm not 100% sure what it was the week
I
before.
got it right here. So 19 targets, 12 receptions, 111 yards, and 1 touchdown for Jacoby. And then Tucker, 15 targets, 12 receptions, 137 yards, and a touchdown. And Devontae's already reported to miss week 5. So this feels like a why would you sit one of these guys? You're just starting to hit the hot streak. But I think that they stay heating up and they don't get to full on hot streak. No NBA Jam mode for Trey Tucker or Jacoby Myers.
I just want to jump in, and I kind of agree. I love Jacoby Myers. My name's right here, Jacoby Myers enthusiast. But him being a wide receiver 1, I think drops his value, in my opinion, because he's not that elite talent. I love him, but he's not that elite talent that is going to absolutely take over, be X factor, be the game winning guy. He's a great number 2 wide receiver on most teams. He'll service great there. But when you have, like this week, when you got Patrick Surtain covering, do you expect Kobe Myers to beat him out? Hell no. I don't like Jacoby Myers. I mean, I do like Trey Tucker because, I like just Jacoby Myers being covered up a lot this week. And so where it's going to free up Trey Tucker, which, we'll just jump into it. That is my wide receiver start of the week. I mean, the targets that he got last week is just insane. And that I think just Jacoby's going to be under so much pressure. Jacoby's maybe going to get like 3-4 catches this week. It's just hard matchup for him, for a guy who's not built to be that wide receiver 1 on any team.
Yeah, I would just say that I don't necessarily disagree with your points, Mason. However, I think Trey Tucker, when Devontae Adams is shipped out, I think Trey Tucker will profile as the number 1. And honestly, the Raiders, it would serve them to hyper focus on Tucker and Bowers, because those guys are really the future. They're not going anywhere this year, so you really want to develop that young talent.
Yeah, I mean, true. Jacoby could actually get, if they do use Trey Tucker as that more wide receiver 1, it could open up some more for Jacoby. But still, I think that if you're a coach going into that matchup, you're looking as Jacoby Myers as the wide receiver 1, just because he's the more proven guy.
Yeah, and really quick, just to touch on your point too, Mason, with Jacoby moving into the wide receiver 1 for the team. He could have hit in the slot if it was Devontae, running most of the routes from the outside. But Jacoby has gone from a 61% slot percentage in week 1, 53 in week 2, 46 in week 3, and down to 27 in week 4. So he's going to be on the outside. He will see more Patrick Surtain than if Devontae was out there. So agree with that point as well.
Do we think there's any chance Devontae ends up anywhere other than the Jets or the Saints?
I think there's a shot anyone can make a bid. I heard Pittsburgh's interested. Think that would make a lot of sense for get Fields an easy target. He's been doing a great job so far. It's completely changed his play style. Being a good game manager, had a big week last week, but George Pickens isn't that technician. They need somebody who can really create the separation. And even with Devontae being 31, I think at this point, I don't think that he's lost his ability to separate. He's just not happy with the situation.
Yeah, there's been some talk of Washington also. I'll be honest, I don't really want to give up draft capital for him. I mean, to me, I don't really, as well as the offense is playing right now, I don't think you risk the chemistry issues to give up draft capital. I mean, we certainly have the cap space, but a second round pick, to me, that doesn't profile as how Adam Peters builds a team either. So I don't really think Washington's a legitimate candidate.
Oh, no, I don't see it going as Washington because, I think Devontae's contract is, 2 years left? And, Washington's offense looks good. You're building towards something, don't get me wrong. But, are you really confident that team's going to win in the next 2 years? No. Realistically, no. The defense needs a lot of work. The only other team I've heard a little rumors of is the Chiefs. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It might just be the Rashee Rice thing. And, anytime that any big wide receivers on the trade block. We always hear the Chiefs because everyone is fantasizing about, oh, put the best quarterback in the league with an elite wide receiver. What's going to happen? Everyone wants to see that, but for fantasy purposes. But
They don't
yeah,
have the cap room, and there's no way Mark Davis and the Raiders send him inside the division to the best team in the division.
Right.
That would be one of the most shocking trades in NFL history.
yeah, that as well. Yeah, I mean, you don't trade someone of that talent in division unless you're like the Giants and you just let Saquon go
I was
to.
just gonna say, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna jump into the wide receiver start of the week here. It matches up with my QB start of the week. Brian Thomas Jr. going up against Indy. Indy's 26th against wide receiver right now. Brian Thomas Jr. is sneakily wide receiver 15 on the season so far in half PPR formats, and in the last 2 weeks really turned it on. 18 targets, 11 receptions, 134 yards, and a touchdown. Right now, he's fourth. So he has the second most targets of 20 plus air yards. There's 3 people that have 5. He has 4. So he's right there in the receptions. He's got the 7th most yards off of those targets, and that's his game. He's going to continue to do so. Last year, Lawrence was very accurate and efficient in his 20 plus yard targets. Not saying that's a staple of his game necessarily, but they take those shots. So he's going to make the most of it when they hit, and this is a good matchup for one of those to turn into a big game.
Just
So yeah,
jumping in quick.
yep.
Brian Thomas Loki, a good dynasty target. He's doing great things for a rookie. His hype isn't up there because he hasn't had that big game yet. So I mean, might as well target for a rookie. He looks great in an offense that's struggling. So I mean, go grab him if you can for a good price.
Let's see, really quick. Would you trade Garrett Wilson for Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yes, because I'm so tired of the Jets.
Lee?
I would not.
No, realistically, I wouldn't either.
It's been so disappointing for him there, and like he has no future at quarterback. But yeah, I do agree. It feels like a bit much, but I didn't know how disappointed you guys are in your Garrett Wilson shares.
I'm not, because I traded with Mason before the season.
I'm sad because if I had Marvin Harrison Jr. there instead, my offense might look pretty good. I mean, I'm 3-1, but this last week was painful.
All right, so that leaves Lee's start of the week at wide receiver.
Yeah, so I got 2. I'll piggyback one on the Brian Thomas and say Christian Kirk for a lot of the same reasons. Kirk was pretty much invisible for the first 2 weeks. He only had 2 catches combined, 7 targets. Over the last 2 games, he's had 22 targets, 15 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. He's became much more involved in the offense, kind of what we were expecting. Still not sure if Evan Ingram is back this week, but he's really back to what we thought in giving you that 10 to 12 point floor for PPR. So, I mean, as a nice, safe play. The other one I would go is not quite as safe, but I really like Romeo Doubs this week. Didn't have a huge game, even as much as they were throwing the ball. He only had 8 targets, 4 receptions, 39 yards. Would have had a touchdown. He bobbled the catch. It was in the end zone. He bobbled it. And when he caught it, he was right outside the goal line. Then there was the whole timeout debacle with Matt LaFleur. But especially with no Christian Watson, he provides something different than what Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks provides. And I think this is really going to be a breakout game playing against the Rams, whose secondary has been really bad. I see this as the Romeo Doubs game. I would play both Christian Kirk and Romeo Doubs over Tyreek Hill this week.
I like that call. I think that they're going to win through the air in this one. Josh Jacobs hasn't been very efficient. Emmanuel Wilson's fine, but he's kind of a plotter, like going to pick up some of those in between the in between the gaps. He's going to run inside and just pick up the dirty work. I do. I'm sorry, I'm throwing off. I just saw Anthony Richardson straight up dropped in redraft. That feels a bit hot, right? Would you guys straight up drop Anthony Richardson right now?
If I had Jaden Daniels, maybe. But I don't know. It would depend on my other situation, how badly I needed a roster spot. But I'd probably pick him up also. Just to
I
see.
I have Jaden Daniels right now, but it's like I'm not. I don't know. I'm picking him up. I'm throwing a solid 20 burger on him. See if that gets the job done.
If we're talking
Sorry.
about Anthony Richardson, I just want to bring up one team that I have in Dynasty, a Superflex team starting this year. It's a rebuilding team. My quarterback was Anthony Richardson. My Superflex was Bryce Young. My third quarterback is Drake May. So I have no starting quarterback this week, and that's fun.
Hot dog. That's it. I got Herbert, Hurts, and who the hell is my third there? Kyler Murray. So Hurts and Herbert both on bye. I'm also starting non QB in a super flex league, but zero QB starting. That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, no. If I somehow win, I will be insanely impressed. But I won't win because AJ Brown is also on bye. So
The other thing I wanted to bring up, we were talking about wide receivers for the Packers. Jaden Reed, top 6 wide receiver this week. I ranked the wide receivers, and right now I have him as wide receiver 3 on the week. I think he pops off in this one. Christian Watson has the same styled like gameplay, where he can make things happen after the catch, deep target. I think Dontavian Wicks does step into that role, but Jaden Reed is going to be leaned on. What do you guys say? Over under top 6 wide receiver?
I'm gonna say over. He looks amazing right now. Him and Jordan Love just look awesome. Like I mean, I got him in a couple of leagues this year, but the leagues I didn't, where I was hesitant, like I don't want to invest too much. I'm now sitting here just like, why did I not listen to that
Right.
hunt feeling?
Without having it in front of me, he was like a 5th or 6th round pick in most leagues, right?
I think sometimes he was going a little later. It depends on the league.
That's pretty
And
crazy. Yeah.
like I mean, in sleeper, yes, but in a lot of other formats, I think you could have got him another round or two later.
I think I'd go under, and I certainly see the path, but I just top 6 is pretty lofty. Top 12, a back end wide receiver one, I definitely think he'll be there. But again, it kind of going with my start. I think this is a Dobbs week.
I'm seeing right now 81st overall. That is pretty crazy. That's what, like mid 7th. Would you guys trade Garrett Wilson in return for Higgins, Brian Thomas, and Kelsey? PPR redraft. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I would trade Garrett Wilson for that. Um, I think that Brian Thomas has tremendous upside and will continue to eat at Gabe Davis's snap percentage. Kelsey's starting to turn it on right now, and tight end is a wasteland, so you can really make up for a lot of points there. And then Higgins, he's boomer bust, but if you get the right week in a great matchup, he can win you a week.
I would give away Garrett Wilson for all of that 100%.
Yeah, not to be boring, but I would smash accept as well. Even if you already have really good depth, I think just the combination of Higgins and Thomas let's see, he's got Neighbors, Deontay. Yeah, so I mean, in that situation, I would be looking to flip a receiver to get that upgrade at running back. Maybe pair because you've added so much depth now. You could pair a Deontay and a Ramondre and get an upgrade. Even if you wanted to go a little bit higher there, I'm probably not trading Neighbors, but any of those other receivers, I would. Of those running backs, Ramondre is the one I would try to sell and package. 4 fumbles in 4 weeks is Yeah, I think change is
And
coming.
Gibson has not fumbled, which is crazy. He's always fumbling. I agree with you, and I think that after this week, it's a good week to do it. Um, I mean, what better transition is there than that? My running back start of the week is Ramondre Stevenson. I think that he's going to have a great week going up against Miami this week. He is going to play against the Miami offense that's not going to move the ball. They're going to give the ball over to New England constantly, and Ramondre should get at least 20 touches in this game if he doesn't continue fumbling. So that'd be the only thing that would make him a threat to, I think, not being a top 18 running back at the bare minimum with top 12 upside.
I do like Ramondre just because that team lacks really anything. I mean, just but one thing that does scare me is the fumbles. He's fumbled every single week so far.
Yeah.
I don't expect that to happen every week, but that is a bad sign. Antonio Gibson actually got a lot more usage last week than what we were expecting. And he was looking good at some points, and I could see him kind of feeding in just because this New England offense is desperate. They're going to try anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my only. I could honestly, I could see Antonio Gibson out touching him for the first time this week. I could see that the sea change already happening. 4 fumbles in 4 games is really. Antonio Gibson got the reputation. He had a really bad fumbling season his sophomore year in Washington. He fumbled 7 times in 17 games. To have fumbled 4 times in your first 4 games, you're already a really bad offense. You can't afford any mistakes. And he caught a big pass, I think, last week against the 49ers. But the one game where he's really gotten some run, that Seattle game, he had 11 carries for 96. He did have one 45-yard run that kind of buoyed that. But still, I think he's a guy who you're going to see. I think it's going to be very close to a 50-50 split this week.
Well, hey, I just want to jump and say that, like how you're talking about Gibson and all those fumbles and that. Gibson, still was producing all right that year with all those fumbles. But with how many times he did that, kind of lost his career. He lost the starting job entirely because of those fumbles and was never given an entire workhorse role.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the fumbles; they were generally at the end of drives in the red zone or on crucial third downs where he converted and then fumbled. It wasn't just all fumbles aren't created equal. I mean, they're all bad, but some are certainly worse than others.
That's the thing, though. Like, I don't think that obviously Stevenson right now is not doing a great job with ball security, and there is talk about him losing the starting gig. But he's lost 2 fumbles this season in 4 games. Prior to that, he's lost 3 fumbles in 3 seasons. Like, I don't think this is going to be a thing that keeps on happening. It's just probably some bad luck coming his way. Whereas Antonio Gibson hasn't put the ball on the ground once this year, but in the past 4 years before that, 13 fumbles in 4 seasons. I don't know. We will see how it goes. But I think that Stevenson at least gets first crack, and if he puts the ball on the ground again, he's probably out. I don't think they straight up start Gibson quite yet. All right. I like your start of the week at running back, Lee. Talk about it.
Yeah, so Jerome Ford. So one thing, obviously, we know Nick Chubb is practicing. I don't expect him to play. Even if he does, I don't expect him to really be a factor. But that's coming soon. So part of this is, if you drafted Jerome Ford, you want to go ahead and get some value out of him. You're probably not going to be able to trade him now for much of anything, even if he has a huge game against Washington. Not to any savvy owner that knows Chubb is on the way back. But Washington's defense has been horrible. The run defense specifically has been pretty bad. Even last week, shut down a pretty good Cardinals offense, but James Conner still went over 100 yards. A lot of it has been up the middle, so that does worry me a little bit. I know Ford is more to the edges, but I could see him. One, Washington's going to score. So they're going to have to keep up. I could see him definitely being very involved in the receiving game. I think he had 7 catches last week, if I did that right.
Yes, sir.
So just a really solid floor he's going to give you against a bad defense in a negative game script, but there's a defense that can be exploited both directions. But I don't know if Deshaun Watson, and maybe I'll eat my words, I don't know if Deshaun Watson has the ability anymore to really exploit him through the air, especially long, deep passes, which has been an Achilles heel. So I just look for a lot of underneath stuff to drum forward, and likely the Washington run defense to continue to struggle.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be involved in the game plan no matter what. I hope the Browns start to run the ball a little bit more frequently. Feel like they've been trying to create this nice, easy game plan for Deshaun, and Deshaun still holds onto the ball too long, doesn't take the easy passes in front of him, and gets sacked 5 to 6 times a game. So I think that's going to continue, but hopefully we start to run the ball a little bit more up top and control the clock. We'll see how that goes. Mason, did you have a take on the Jerome Ford start?
Nah, I'm not really interested in the game between Washington and Cleveland. That's 2 pretty trash teams right there.
So no Amari Cooper for you? You're just talking shit to talk shit.
Hard to say with a straight face now, isn't it, Mason? It's hard to say with a straight face. About a 3-1 first place team.
All right, so Mason, we got your running back start of the week here.
All right. Well, mine also going same team as my quarterback. I'm gonna go DeAndre Swift. Finally had a good week last week. We have been waiting for it. Anyone who has held faithful and kept him in. I sat him in a couple leagues, started him in a couple leagues. Was happy in the ones I did, sad on the ones I didn't. Like I said, playing Carolina. So this is also Caleb Williams' game to kind of go off. I think that this Bears team, the Chicago team, they had a lot of expectations coming into the season. Playing against Carolina, I think this is your week to really kind of show what this offense truly can do. Take some more risks. Not try to be as safe with the ball. Also I think they're going to have a positive game script for a majority of the game, leaving to DeAndre Swift getting some good work in. Obviously, Roschon isn't looking too bad. That does worry me a little bit, especially with Swift only having the one good week. I just think it's going to be a great week for the Bears. I'm all over them. I'm going to be probably taking their spread this week. I like the Bears this week a lot. Really show up and do what we were kind of expecting them to do at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great game last week, and he looks like he still has the burst. Still got the juice. Carolina, bad team. Chicago, and even with Dalton like leading this offense to a little bit more of a successful recipe here. Just taken again was easy, and I can't understand why Bryce Young has been struggling so hard. But
Because he's
that's
terrible.
yeah, it's got to be right. This is so. Oh man, besides the point, but yeah, DeAndre Swift, great game. Rams terrible defense. So I do think that he could repeat this week and next week against Jacksonville. After that, to Washington, Arizona. It's got some good schedule coming up in the next 4 weeks here. I do think he could be a trade candidate. However, after the big game, it's going to be hard to grab him at a cheap price.
Yeah, I'm more nervous about this matchup. I mean, he obviously had a big game. The rushing touchdown, I think, was like 35, 36 yards. He was pretty average in the run game. Other than that, he had the 7 catches for 70 ish, 72, and that's what really, of course, the 36-yard touchdown and then the receiving game is what really buoyed his value last week. And he's not the goal line back. I think Roschon Johnson has kind of taken that role. I don't know how many scoring opportunities or how much they're going to have to score. I expect to see a lot more Roschon in this game as well. And I think he's going to have to break a big run or catch at least 6 balls to return value. I don't know if this is the game for him to do that.
All right, we're gonna have to speed up if we want to get through this redraft redo. Why don't we do the tight end sits of the week? Mason started off.
My tight end sit of the week is Kyle Pitts. Um, Obviously, just continuing to being disappointing. There's a lot of situations though where you know where he's kind of at where you might be looking for someone to replace him. Going up against Tampa, they got Levante David, good middle linebacker who I think is going to stop that tight end play a lot. I also just see uh, I don't know. I don't see this going well for this game just going well in general for the entire Atlanta offense. Tampa's looked tough. They lost week 3. That was a bad loss. I believe it was week 3. That was a bad loss. Tampa's looked tough every other week. They're not a team that you should go easily into. Uh, I see Atlanta struggling in general. Kyle Pitts struggles. I continue to see it happening. Drake London, Darnell Mooney are the only, and Bijan, of course, are the only 3 guys that I really have any faith starting in that lineup this week.
Yeah, drafted Pitts in one league, and I was like, I'm ready to be hurt again, and that's exactly how it goes.
Maybe he's
Mine's,
just not good.
I
Maybe he's just
mean,
not that good.
he doesn't create a lot of separation. I'm surprised because he is an athletic freak, but it's not been working. And if it's not going to work with old reliable Kirk Cousins slinging it back there, then I don't know too many quarterbacks it would work with. Um, my tight end sit of the week is Mark Andrews. It's tough to find a middle ground here. There's not really that fence of guys that you're sitting on. Are you going back and forth with Andrews? Goose egg last 2 weeks. Is under 50% snap share the last 2 weeks. Maybe this is a little bit more of a shootout against Cincy. Baltimore has been susceptible in the pass game, but Cincy's susceptible in the run game, and I think that they are just gonna run the ball down their throats all day long. Lee, I thought your tight end sit of the week was interesting considering my start.
Yeah. So real quick, I'm not quitting Mark Andrews yet. I have a hard time sitting him at this point, and I know back-to-back goose eggs. If you give me 3 in a row, I probably got to pivot. But I definitely think this is a more high-scoring game, and I'm looking for him to really get more involved in the offense this week, as I was last week. But
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
going to go ahead.
I want to jump in real quick. I mean, that's kind of how I am too with Mark Andrews. I think this is just what you kind of get when you have a quarterback like Lamar, and then now you have Derrick Henry. There's going to be some games where it's just so heavy in the run where there's going to be no support. And I mean, Lamar's never been the most consistent passer to anyone ever, really, in fantasy. I mean, Mark Andrews had his years. But besides that, he's never been a consistent passer to anyone. I mean, Zay Flowers is even a scary start. I just anyone Lamar's throwing the ball to is scary because it's so inconsistent with how this offense runs, and it's not necessarily Lamar's fault. It's just how the play calling kind of goes. There's going to be some weeks where you love it, some weeks you hate it.
Yeah, and I think the game script you can kind of game script explain away some of the last 2 weeks, especially if he hasn't been fully healthy. You go up big on the Cowboys, you go up big against the Bills. You don't really need him, and if he's a guy that's not fully healthy, it's a good time to get him a little bit of rest. He's been blocking his tail off out there when he's been out there, which isn't necessarily what you want to hear. So I don't know that it's really injury, but I do look for him to be more involved this week. So to jump to
Really
my
quick. Just really quick. I mean, you said that they blew out the Cowboys and the Bills. Like, I don't think that the Bengals are better than either of those teams. So I think, and like, Bengals are weak against running back. Bengals are right now 8th best against tight end. So I feel like with all of those things combined, Mark Andrews has a bad week. But I just
well,
want to rebuttal that real quick.
yeah, I mean that's a fair point, but two things that are a little different is it is a divisional game. So and in general, the Bengals have played the Ravens pretty well the last few years, and there's more explosiveness in that offense, more weapons in the pass game, and they're a super desperate team. So I do think the Bengals are going to be able to score. especially with that familiarity. And Joe Burrow, for whatever reason, they don't really click until the second month of the season. So we'll see. I mean, they could. The Bengals defense is bad. I kind of see this as a shootout. So we'll see if that materializes or not.
Right. Hoping for it.
So we are on opposing ends. My sit of the week is Tucker Kraft, the hot pickup on waiver wires this week. He's coming off a game with 6 catches, 53 and a touchdown. The game script, they were down 28-0. Jordan Love had an incredible game after that. Almost brought him back, but couldn't quite. But if you look at the 3 games prior to that, he had 8 total targets in 3 games. Now, some of that was with Malik Willis, but Malik didn't play bad, and you expect a guy like that to use his tight end a little more. Even with Christian Watson being down, still a ton of threats in that pass game. And this is more anecdotal than anything, but every week in this season so far, there's been a tight end that had a really good game, and people rush to the waiver wire to pick him up. Isaiah Likely, Hunter Henry. The third week is escaped. Cole Kmet. Every week there's been that guy that people rush to pick up, and then the next week they came back to earth because the tight end position just has not been consistent. And he's a solid guy to pick up and put on your bench, but I would not start him over Mark Andrews this week. And Jackson has that decision to make, and I'm going to advise him to keep Mark Andrews. He's new to fantasy. He's very angry with Mark Andrews, so he may start Tucker Kraft.
And I don't blame him. I got Kraft as my start of the week. Right now, I have him listed as the tight end for this week specifically. So the Rams, their defense is not what it once was. They really don't have any studs on this team. No pass coverage linebackers. Tucker Kraft's eating up snaps. 96%, 80%, 67% in the week he got injured, and then immediately came back from injury at 86% with the game of his career so far. So I am not expecting him to have 9 targets, 6 receptions for 50-plus yards and a touchdown. But I do think with the tight end landscape right now, Tucker Kraft with Christian Watson out is going to be a lock, in my opinion, for a top 8 tight end. So many injuries going around the league right now. Trey McBride seems like he should be able to start this week, but he's coming off of the concussion, just missed last week because of it. George Kittle's he played last week, but he's still returning from an injury. Jake Ferguson had an injury early on. Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Kyle Pitts just sucks. Mark Andrews, double goose eggs. It's like there's nobody left right now. So if you can get Tucker Kraft, I say you go out there and start him. I actually picked up Tucker Kraft last week in a league where I had Njoku and Hawkinson. That was my game plan. Njoku gets injured. I got to figure my crap out at tight end. And end up taking Tucker Kraft. Last second saw Hunter Henry was sitting there, so I swapped out my starts. I put Hunter Henry in and Tucker Kraft out, and that was the difference in a W or a loss that week. So
the tinkerer.
Maybe I'm overcorrecting, but I do think that with Watson out and Love looking just stellar so far, he's going to get the job done. All right. You guys, hold on. We got to hit your quarterback set of the week here, Lee. Why don't you start us off with that?
Yeah, so I'm sitting Patrick Mahomes if I have any viable candidates. I do think he's probably a trait 4 target after this week. I do still believe in the talent, obviously. I think they're going to figure it out. And I do think ultimately the Isaiah Pacheco injury over the next month and a half is going to benefit him fantasy-wise. However, the Saints' defense has been very good. Against the Falcons, I think the Falcons had 2 defensive touchdowns, or maybe it was a defensive and a special team. Either way, they weren't scoring on the Saints' defense. It seems like they're winning these games 17-14 or 20-17. The defense is very good. It's keeping them in a positive game script. And I don't think that breakout comes this week, but I do think it's coming soon because you can't keep the talent down. It's just I don't know. I think the expectations of what we saw 2 and 3 years ago just aren't going to be met this year until we see Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, fully healthy, and really the more important part, until we see the Chiefs defense take that step back and really cause some more negative game scripts and cause the Chiefs to have to score 30, 35 points to win games. Just don't think we're going to see the Patrick Mahomes from a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the thing is with the Chiefs is that team just has looked so well rounded. Mahomes hasn't had to do really anything. I mean, when they've asked him to do stuff, has he looked good? Oh yeah, it's no knock against Mahomes hitting him. Is he still one of the best quarterbacks in the league? 100%. But he hasn't had to be in a single situation this season where it's good for fantasy. He hasn't, and I can see that continuing. The Chiefs they're just a good team. I mean, look at Brady. Like, I mean, when we talk, GOAT status sort of guys, like these just reliable guys. Yeah, they're going to put up consistent numbers, but there's going to be these weeks where they don't have to do much because they just made a couple good plays when they needed to, and they never needed to make 80-yard passing drives for touchdowns or anything like that.
Yeah, it's going to continue to go that way. Too good of a team, too good of a defense. The only times I'm going to like really start him with hope for a big upside is when they're going up against really strong offenses. But it's not too peppered into their schedule. San Fran, Buffalo, Tampa Bay's been hot, but I wouldn't consider them like a very strong offense to the point where they're going to give Chiefs some trouble. That's basically it. So if you can still sell high on Mahomes, do so. All right. So I'm gonna speed run this one. Sam Darnold going to Minnesota. I'm sorry, going to New York. Gonna play his old team. Nothing. He has nothing but nightmares in New York. He doesn't know anything but pain in that city. So I think that mixed with obviously just a really tough matchup. He's gonna struggle this week. I think you sit him, and it's tough saying that because Darnold is right now QB number 4 on the season, but I'm sitting him.
Darnold, I mean, I think this is a week where I still expect the Vikings to win.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's how Jets games are going to be probably for most of the year. Just I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners week 1 was the highest scoring offense against the Jets all season. I wouldn't be surprised if no other team this year does what they did that in week 1.
Yeah, I mean Denver's got a special defense, but Bo Nix just threw 60 yards and beat the Jets. So
Yeah.
Vikings should win, but that doesn't help Darnold's case. If anything, it's like an Aaron Jones argument. But yeah, I feel you.
Revenge game, man. I'm starting Darnold. He is going to play one of his best games of the season. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to shove it down every New York Jet fan's throat.
Yeah, it's really quick. It's revenge week. Stephon Diggs plays the Bills. DJ Moore plays the Panthers. Sam Darnold plays the Jets. Might be some others that I'm forgetting, but big week for revenge narrative. Mason, QB start of the week.
Oh, my QB start of the week is going to be Kirk Cousins. Or QB sit, you mean, right?
Oh, my bad. Yes,
Yeah.
QB sit.
QB sit is Kirk Cousins. Like I kind of said, Tampa's just look like I said with Kyle Pitts, Tampa's just kind of look like a tough team. I mean, I don't count the Falcons out of necessarily, winning the game, but I just think it's just going to be a very gritty game where if the Falcons stand a chance, it will be a gritty game. I mean, Bucks could blow them out, but I think if it is a close game by any means, it's going to be very gritty. No big plays or anything. It's going to be very defense dependent.
Wait, Mason, do you think this game's gonna be gritty? I'm sorry, I heard you say the word like 3 times. So I had to call you out.
My
This is
bad.
gonna be a gritty game. No, I like it. We got to keep speed running this though. Running back sits of the week. I got Zach Moss and Chase Brown against Baltimore. They've just been stellar against the run, and I said personally, I do think that this is going to be more Baltimore leaning. So I got them as sits in a negative game script.
Yeah,
Uh,
I got
I-
Cuba Hubbard. Go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, mine is Devin Singletary. Just Giants have looked bad. Seattle's defense has looked pretty tough so far. Don't necessarily see a good game script for Devin Singletary. Don't see him running one in for a touchdown. Maybe finishing with around 8 or 9 points at max this week.
Yeah, so I've got Chuba Hubbard, and it's just the Bears' defense. Honestly, if you look at the numbers, are middle of the road against the run so far. But I think they're going to overwhelm the Panthers. I think they're going to overwhelm the Panthers' offensive line, and I'm fading. I'd probably start Deontay Johnson. That's the only one out of the Panthers' offense this week, and probably going to put a couple of bucks on the Bears to cover. I think the spread was like 4 last I saw it. And yeah, I like the Bears. I've done pretty well betting against the Panthers so far.
Yeah, spread is still at 4. I'd be interested to see who's going to be covering Deontay Johnson and who's going to be covering Xavier Legette. If it's Jalen Johnson on Deontay Johnson, then I do think that Xavier could have that big play. But we'll see how it goes. Deontay has been playing out wide primarily.
Or it's a Jonathan Mingo type of week.
What'd you say?
Or it's a Jonathan Mingo type of week.
Oh my God. Right. Sounds like last year's talk with Terrence Marshall. All right, let's get into it, guys. We have the fantasy redraft redo. We got the draft board up on YouTube. If you can join us there, take a look. We're going to be going through as many rounds as we can get through. Right now, Mason has the first overall pick. I have the second overall pick. Lee has the fifth. We're going with a PPR standard roster league. It's going to be 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, and as many bench players as we can fit on there. Let's get it going, boys. Starting up the draft. Hold on. Make sure you have your sound off so we don't ding everybody on this. You ready? Mason's up on the clock. 30 seconds to make your pick and explain it. We are speed running this draft, guys.
I'm going to go ahead and say 101 Justin Jefferson. Really quick, sorry to jump into your time, but I mean, he just has looked great. Sam Darnold was the doubt. Justin Jefferson has looked great as he is wide receiver 3 right now. He's going to be consistent with that. We'll probably finish top 3 at the end of the season.
I'm going with Saquon Barkley, just as stable as it gets at running back, and not too much consistency outside of Saquon at running back. Definitely has put those tush push worries to ease. Scoring touchdowns on the Ridge.
No, I went Kyron Williams because the talk of his demise was very premature. He is still everything for the Rams. No Blake Corum yet. And with the injuries, again, he's everything.
Yeah, that was one of my bigger beliefs heading into the season, and happy where I did get Kyron Williams. But I won't take away from your time. Keep on going, Lee.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. And we're going to double up. Alvin Kamara, just again, he's been everything for that offense so far.
Yeah, I mean, 2 stud running backs to start it off. So let's see who we got on the board here. At quarterback, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, not doing that. Achane, Pacheco, Rashad White, James Cook. Wide receiver, London, Mike Evans, Ayuk, Nico Collins is my pick. He is just the clear alpha on this team. Does what the other 2 don't. And I think that Tank's going to eat into Stephon Diggs' work.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick just with what I'm doing. But my pick might be a little surprising. Yeah.
Yes. All right, everybody out there, Thank you for joining us in Atlanta. Make sure you check out the YouTube page. We got the draft board up. We're talking through some of these picks, redoing the 2024 redrafts. Mason, talk about your pick here.
So I went with Kenneth Walker. I know he missed the 2 weeks, but the 2 weeks he's been healthy. He's looked great, especially last week. As long as he's healthy, I expect him to put up RB1 numbers the rest of the season. Don't have confidence in the rest of the Seattle offense. Next one, I'm gonna go early. We're off the air. Fuck you, Lee. Jaden Daniels. No, I didn't mean to do that. Pause that. Pause it.
I
Daniels. I meant to go Jaden Daniels. All right. Well, all right.
got you.
Meant to go
I got
Jaden
you,
Daniels
dog.
there. I mean, he's
That is
just the most
It's
electric.
QB1. QB1.
that is
Yeah.
the
I mean, that's just
earliest into the hour mark hit. Oh god damn it. All right. So the hour mark hit, and then that was the earliest "fuck you, Mason" or "fuck you, Lee" that's been released so far. We're like 40 seconds in right now. So, all right, remove the player. We are going to set.
301. That makes me smile.
no. I mean, honestly, like he's just look. I mean, is Josh Allen probably going to finish as QB1 at the end of the year? Yeah, probably. But Jaden Daniels just looks so electric. Where there's already been 2 weeks in the season where there's been 2 games where I have lost solely off of Jaden Daniels' performance, and I want that on my team where I could have someone else look at it and be like, "Oh, I lost because of Jaden Daniels."
So right now, I'm gonna go with James Cook. James Cook is one of the few reliable running backs. It might not have the touchdown upside, but right now, one of the most explosive players in the league.
Yeah, I like it, and I'm gonna continue with our theme of rookies, and I mean, Dad's definitely gonna finish second in rookie of the year. Give me
Neighbors.
all the target share of Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, that was the other player I was struggling with there. It's difficult doing this because right now it's the beginning of the year ADPs, and used to digging for guys, but it's after I've done about 1,000 mock drafts over the offseason.
Um, yeah, we'll go ahead. Oh no, never mind. He already went. So we're gonna just go ahead and be. Where'd he go? Take Jaden Reed as my second wide receiver. Sorry, I was supposed to talk about that before, but just looked electric, especially with Jordan Love. He is undoubtedly the number one receiver for the Packers, and only going to get better with Watson out.
Yeah, no, I like that. At my pick here, I'm kind of debating Joe Mixon, just to add to the running back depth because I do think there's a big drop off after this. I do think Aaron Jones would be a great pick, but who I'm gonna go with is DK Metcalf. We have Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, both big play threats. They can each win me a week.
My first pick here, I'm going to go ahead and take David Montgomery. There was a lot of worries with that. Gibbs would have a big second year. There was some worry with Gibbs, though, coming in with the hamstring year. Montgomery is currently running back 9, I believe. Or it might even be better. I'm not 100% sure, but he's just looked great. I'm so happy with the leagues that I've trusted that he would have a good season, and waited a little bit to take him as my RB2. I think he's proven enough that he's worth that capital where I took him at. Um, right here, though, next pick is where it starts to kind of get a little weird. Even with the injury concerns, I'm going to go Kittle because no other tight end has looked consistent at all. When Kittle has played, he's looked great. He's looked like the only consistent weapon on that Niners offense so far. I mean, Debo's looked good too, but and Jordan Mason, of course. But in the passing game, Kittle's looked like the most consistent fantasy producer.
Yeah, I'm surprised you went with two onesie positions through 5 rounds, but I think you got two good ones at that. I got Chris Godwin here at the 502. I got Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, and now a more consistent producer especially with him moving back to the slot. And then Barkley and Cook at running back. Lee, you're up.
Yeah, so I do think he's going to continue to improve and shown a little bit, but I think Caleb Williams has done enough where DJ Moore will continue to improve. And again, I like I went with the consistency, and now I went a big hitter for the third wide receiver, so more of a boomer bust guy. I can't see the screen.
All right, get back up.
So I was doing that, assuming this guy would fall back to me. Anybody that's listened for any amount of time, I was huge on him. Everybody called me a homer, but the B Robinson that's actually producing so far this year. Give me Brian Robinson.
That's what I was going to take right there too. So
yeah, I think that's a solid move, and I do think there is a big old tier gap coming up here at running back. I am going to select Najee Harris. He's been so disappointing so far. However, I do think he's going to have a better stretch coming up here in these upcoming weeks. So just my RB3, sitting behind James Cook and Saquon Barkley. So fine RB3 in the 6th round.
I'm gonna go ahead right here and take Xavier Worthy, looking like he's going to be Patrick Mahomes' wide receiver 1 going forward after the Rashee Rice injury, which is looking like it's going to be a year out. He's had 2 great games so far. Now being the wide receiver 1, a lot more practice time. I expect him to continue improving off of that. Keep on, building. And then a little surprising. Oh, I can't find it in time. I'll wait. I'm going to go Austin Eckler. I know that might be a little early, but he's looked great. Obviously, the concussion last week, but he's looked like he's the receiving back. I mean, Brian Robinson, both of the Washington running backs have proven they can put up fantasy numbers working against each other.
Yeah.
Okay. So with my pick, I am going to go with Brock Bowers. Not what I expected to do at this time. If you told me at the draft that Brock Bowers would be one of the better tight ends, one of the only consistent tight ends in the league right now, I'd be shocked. Usually not rookie tight ends MO ones with tight ends drafted in round 2 the year before.
Yeah, so tough really between 2 guys here, but we're going to go with the more explosive option and the younger guy. I'm going to go Jamison Williams here, really showing that downfield threat, and he's been so much more involved in the offense. Got to love, if you drafted him early in rookie dynasty drafts, you are loving what you're seeing.
Yes, and I have traded him away as of last year in a contender. Really regretting that right now.
So I was kind of playing the ADP game here, hoping this guy would come back to me. We'll go ahead and get the stack with Jaden Reed. He's looked really good in both games. He's been healthy. Expecting to overcome the injury. So we went Jordan Love.
That is who I wanted. That is who I wanted right there. That would have been a nice addition to the team. I do think there's a tier gap here at quarterback. So I'm going to take Brock Purdy while he's still available. Hasn't had the most exciting beginning to the year. Last week started to take a step in the right direction. I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago against the Rams. Last week against the Patriots. Not quite what we want to see. Arizona, Seattle in the next 2, and then Kansas City and Dallas. So I like it, the upcoming schedule.
So with my first one, I'm going to take Brian Thomas, who's currently wide receiver 14 off of what this league said. Looking good for a rookie. I've taken him as my wide receiver 3. Looks like he's got a good full floor. And then this might be a little early. I'm not exactly sure about it, but I'm going to go Braylon Allen.
Whoa, that is very early.
I like Braylon Allen. I mean, I know Breece Hall is there, and he is the RB1 100%. But Braylon Allen has looked good. They feel like they're going to utilize him. He's the youngest player in the NFL. There's a lot of opportunity for him going forward to use a lot of trick plays, little flips like week 2 or week 3 when he got the little goal line flip and ran one in. Looked good. I mean, I like Braylon Allen, especially if Brees Hall goes down. Braylon Allen's going to feed.
All right, I went with Jackson Smith and Jigba after that. He's been heavily targeted. We talked about it. This is a PPR league we're drafting for, so JSN.
Well, the computer just snaked me because I was hoping Ferguson would come back, but he didn't. So with that, don't want 2 Giants here. Otherwise, I'd probably take Singletary. Since Singletary's gone, we're going to take J.K. Dobbins as RB4. Looking rejuvenated. I just need a few games, for him to be my starter, honestly, with the 3 in front.
So just out of curiosity, you wanted Jake Ferguson and passed on Dallas Goddard. Obviously, slow first couple of weeks, but then really popped after that, mostly due to the injuries on the team. Moving forward, let's say Dallas Goddard has a bye this upcoming week. So week 6 on, who would you rather have, Jake Ferguson or Dallas Goddard?
Ferguson, assuming the health of the other guys.
All right. I would also go Ferguson. I don't blame you for wanting him over Goddard. Okay. Talk about that last pick.
Yeah, so then I went Rico Dowdle just to kind of finish my running back room. I think he's clearly emerged as he's going to be the guy. Dalvin Cook, 49-year-old Dalvin Cook doesn't worry me. Ezekiel Elliott, I think I might could beat him in a foot race at this point. So, yeah, he's going to get goal line carries, should still be a pretty good offense. So, again, a guy who I think after the next he's got a tough stretch of games coming up, but after that, I think he could be a value late in the season.
All right. After your pick, I went with Chase Brown at the 11th pick of the 10th round. I do still believe in Zach Moss as the primary goal line back, as the guy that will probably end up as the leading running back in fantasy on that team. But Chase Brown right now, he's got the pop. He could step into a bigger role. Oh, what the? I didn't see Bucky Irving still available. That's a better pick. That's a better
I
pick
went
right
with
there.
Bucky Irving, who I talked about last week. I love him. He looks great so far with the limited role he's got. He's a great target, especially if Rashad White goes down. Oh my God, Bucky Irving's going to go off 1 week. My next one, I love this year, the 11th round. Shakir, who has been just consistent. I mean, he picked up that injury this last week, ankle injury, but still, he's looked like he might be Josh Allen's wide receiver number 1, taking him in the 11th. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is a solid pick in both ends there. It's part of that ADP game that you can play here, especially with the bots. Oh, I have 5 seconds. All right, I am taking
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Apparently, I autoed. Honestly, not the worst pick in the world. Having Brock Purdy right now, not explosive quarterback, so could just play whoever has the better matchup. I'm just gonna stick with it, but I probably would have went with Jacoby Myers, Xavier Legette, somebody who could have more pop going forward, especially
So
with. Sorry.
I'll say I went with Rashid Shaheed there. Just obviously another really boomer bust guy, but especially those first few weeks, give me a guy that can win me a week, and just hope he catches the long ball. If I have to play him in this situation.
All right. You have your 12:08 pick on the clock.
Tick, 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 tick. We'll take Jaleel McLaughlin. Just kind of don't really want any Bronco, but he's looked like the guy to me. Javonte Williams is done.
This is tough. There's not a ton left that's popping out at me right now, but we talked about him earlier. Antonio Gibson is doing more than we expected and has the opportunity to step into a bigger role. So I'll take him here. Got a couple of speedsters on the back end here in Chase Brown and Antonio Gibson. Mason, you are up.
With my first one, I'm going to take Darnell Mooney, who was one of my sleepers this year, and I'm so glad I took him. He's currently wide receiver 40. Has had solid productions enough where I'm okay with throwing him in at the flex. Having him as my wide receiver 5, I'm all right with that. With my next one, I'm also going to go another wide receiver. I'm going to go Josh Downs. A little scary because I don't trust Anthony Richardson, but with Flacco this last week, he finished with 82 yards on 8 receptions and 1 touchdown. I mean, if Flacco's there, I think it's good. Even with Richardson there, I still think there's some good potential for Josh Downs.
All right. I'm going with Tucker Kraft here in the 13th round. Have Brock Bowers as my starting tight end. Like Brock Bowers talked about the struggles rookies have at tight end. So I will take a second-year talented big old boy in Tucker Kraft.
I probably would have taken him there just because I had Love, but honestly, it would have been between him and this guy, and just give me steady old Hunter Henry. Going to be some bad weeks, but he's going to give you a solid 4 most weeks of 4 for 40. They just don't have a lot else in New England. Hopefully, they unlock with Drake May.
Right. I mean, I get it because he's older, but it is funny that you called him like steady old Hunter Henry because he's never been anything but boomer and bust for most part, at least since LA or San Diego at the time. Last pick.
I think I'm going to have to take Wan'Dale Robinson kind of as insurance if Neighbors is hurt.
I had him queued up. Wandale's just getting so heavily targeted. I talked about him being the target leader in this offense. Obviously, didn't see Malik Neighbors popping off quite to this extent. For my last pick, same team as the last guy I just drafted, but Dontavian Wicks, knowing what we know right now, potentially stepping into a role. Don't think he'll overtake Christian Watson when he's healthy, but worth a shot.
The last pick, it's not what I wanted. I was hoping someone slipped to me who I want to talk about a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and say Justin Fields as my backup, looking like he's going to be that starter for a majority of the season. A lot of upside there. But who I was wanting to get was he was taken. Let me make sure. Yeah, K. Dotton, who in multiple leagues I had as my tight end, and I had you guys both tell me who he's not league winning. When the last 2 weeks, he's looked pretty solid, got a lot of receptions, doing pretty good in tight end premium leagues. I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he is the highest floor, lowest ceiling backup tight end you can get in fantasy. You know what I'm saying? Like you can throw him in there, and in a tight end premium, he'll definitely have his weeks where he can pop a little bit more. But he just does not have the athleticism to make anything of his opportunities. He's reliable. He's going to be on the field. He's going to get at least 2 to 4 receptions per week, but no upside in the K dot in play.
Hey, he's got the goat throwing the ball, so
That's all that matters, right? In Mayfield, we trust. Except, I guess Andrew Berry did not.
In that jersey.
In Baker Mayfield, Andrew Berry did not trust. All right, so we are going to cap off the show there. Check out the YouTube page if you haven't already. We got the draft board up. Drop a comment. Say who your favorite team was in this redraft league or who you would have taken in the spot if given the chance. All right, everyone have a great week. Have a good week 5, better than my week 4.